welcome back to the Muslim Street. You're listening live from WTAN 1340. We have with us today Brother Akbar as we're discussing the life of Malcolm X, the significance of the life of Malcolm X and his teachings. We have with us on the phone Dr. White, who is from Orlando. Dr. White has a question for Akbar. Welcome to the Muslim Street.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
I'm so happy for your program, Laila and Brother Malik. It's like old times. I worked with Brother Akbar, and I labored with Brother Malik in Chicago. And briefly, I was a student with Brother Manny Marable at Purdue.
Wow. Very good to have you on the show.
It's a pleasure to be on your show. Two questions. One, the great John Henry Clark, who also was a friend of Malcolm in New York, maintains that there were certain brothers, Arab brothers, he argues, who offered Malcolm $3.5 million early on to separate himself from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I wonder, does Brother Akbar have any knowledge or thoughts about this, if it's true or not? And secondly, one of the things that is true is that Brother Malcolm galvanized a whole generation of people to labor and to move in the black struggle, influencing such people as Stokely and various members of the Black Panthers to become progressive in fighting for the rights of African American people in the United States and African people worldwide. I wonder, can you point to anyone now that's galvanizing the blacks, the youth, the students to move and to become assertive and analytical in the fight for freedom, as Malcolm did during the 1960s?
Well, thank you very much, Dr. White. It's two good questions. The first question, I have only heard rumors about that. I've never given it any, talk or tried to find out about the offer of money to separate from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam.
Let me just pitch in here really quickly and say that regardless of whether this is a rumor or if this happened, Malcolm X gave a pretty descriptive reasoning of why he left, and that would be the reasoning. It was personal, it was spiritual, and it should be left at that, right? Or do you think otherwise?
Well, I think that there were a lot of factors that may not come to the surface. There were, we had our own internal contradictions. I think that Malcolm made some errors of judgment and things that he did, and also things that we did within the nation in terms of how we viewed Malcolm's notoriety and his public profile, which he was the face of the Nation of Islam. An example, if you know the history of Iraq, Tariq Aziz was the face of Iraq, even though Saddam Hussein was the leader, but it was Tariq Aziz who was seen all over the world. He was the spokesman. Malcolm was like that for the nation. So within the nation, there were people who didn't appreciate that because they thought that he was perhaps outshining his leader, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So that created some problems for Malcolm within the Nation of Islam. And when Malcolm left, things that Malcolm did, such as he started the Muhammad Speaks in New York, he opened many of the mosques across the country by sending brothers there to open it. The credit that he rightfully deserved for the work that he did on behalf of the nation, it was not given to him nor even spoken of. So I think that Malcolm, knowing him, I think that he was too principled of a man to accept money from any foreign source or anybody in the Arab world in order for him to leave. If he wanted to leave the nation, or when he did leave the nation, it was based on his principle. It was based on what he decided to do, and not because he was encouraged by anybody with money.
Right.
The other thing, the other question about do I see anyone who is out there doing the kind of work that Malcolm was driving young people and inspiring young people. And Dr. White, you are absolutely right. Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture, was the one who invited Malcolm on his first speech at Howard University. And Kwame was inspired by Malcolm. And Kwame didn't necessarily subscribe to becoming a Muslim, but what Malcolm was saying was ringing a bell at that time in the struggle. And he was inspired in his international outlook to look at Africa and to see the global struggle. As people say that Malcolm felt the struggle should be internationalized. That's a word that they use, but that the struggle of black people in America should be on the world scene. You may have read that recently at Brown University, they found Malcolm's speech there in May of 1961. It was discovered, and this fellow who was the representative to the Middle East, who died recently, I can't call his name, but he was a student at the time, and they found Malcolm's tapes. And the reason that Malcolm was invited to Brown at that time, because a young student wanted to present to the student body a man who thought that integration was not the direction to go. And this so happened, it happened at the very time that the Freedom Riders were going to the South, leaving Washington and heading through the South. And what happened to them was at the same time. But today, the climate and what is going on in America is absolutely different from that time. So is there anyone inspired? Is there anyone doing that work? No, I don't see it out there today in that manner. The Nation of Islam, under the leadership of Minister Farrakhan, is moving, but spinning off other groups and other organizations and other people engaged in the struggle, I don't see it today. And one of the reasons that I mentioned is because how America talked about the people in the Arab world and other parts don't like us because we are free people. And meanwhile, they begin to strip away all of our freedoms. I mean, when I go to the airport, I think of it all the time, what people have to go through and how our freedom to do things has been curtailed based on how we're perceived and seen in the outside world. So whether there are people who draw from Malcolm as a source of inspiration today and get involved in the struggle, I don't see that right now. And this is why we have to focus on young people, giving them direction. Right now there's a push to finish school and get a job in corporate America and work and accumulate cash, or become a major sports figure, or become a major entertainer.
Brother
but there is no push for us to get involved in bringing social justice to our people as it was during the time that Malcolm did it.
And since we're talking about the inspiration and the message that Malcolm X did bring to the student audience and the significance that it can have today, like you mentioned, Brother Akbar, I want to play this clip really quickly. It's a really quick clip about Malcolm X addressing a group of students in the 1960s.
Who are you? You don't know. Don't tell me Negro, that's nothing. What were you before the white man named you a Negro? And where were you? And what did you have? What was yours? What language did you speak then? What was your name? It couldn't have been Smith or Jones or Bunch or Powell. That wasn't your name. They don't have those kind of names where you and I came from. No, what was your name? And why don't you now know what your name was then? Where did it go? Where did you lose it? Who took it? And how did he take it? What tongue did you speak? How did the man take your tongue? Where is your history? How did the man wipe out your history? What did the man do to make you as dumb as you are right now?
Thank you. Thanks for playing that, Bill. Bill's red right now. Red. I wanted to play that because I think that what I get out of Malcolm X's speeches, and I have actually I've read a lot about Malcolm X, and I know that a lot of younger people today don't. But the reason that I think that I am motivated and inspired by Malcolm X is because he triggers self-reflection. And I think in any moment of social change, in any moment of trying to tackle problems that are bigger than us, we'll get to the caller in a minute, but I wanted to discuss this with Brother Akbar. That is the significance of Malcolm X, and that's the timelessness of his message, is that self-reflection kind of engineers and keeps social change going and empowers people to know who they are, to become leaders, to inspire others, and I love that message from Malcolm X.
Right, it's an excellent message. And at the core of it, I just want to say quickly, I know you have a caller on the line, is that he, by delivering messages like that, he caused us to have faith in ourselves. That's one thing. We had no faith, no confidence in ourselves. And what he did with a message like that, he built the confidence and he made you think. He made you look at things that you never even thought about in your life. If my name was Johnson and it was Leroy Johnson, I never thought about where my name came from and why I call myself a Negro, or why I don't have a language from the land that I came from. It didn't enter our mind. And what Malcolm introduced us to is something altogether different to think about. And he took the words and the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his articulation of it and his piercing voice made people to open their eyes and think. And that was the power in the message that Malcolm delivered.
Yeah, you know, Akbar, before we go to the other side of the break, still hold on when it's for the next segment. I told you about Laila. Laila chose that clip. I didn't. But as I listened to Malcolm, I was like, wow. You know, just that kind of, you know, message sending chills down my spine. It's like, wow. But again, I see that message resonating through the immigrant activist community who is being targeted by the United States government.
The conscious activist community.
Yeah, exactly.
Just the people of conscious, I would say. You're listening to the Muslim Street. Thank you for joining us live, and we'll be right back after this break.